Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey, and today we're going to get into the waiver wire show, who you should pick up for your week 2 rosters. Let's just get right into it again, Jeff. Do you have a top guy for the week? Is there like one that stands out to you? Or is it just a collection of guys that are all similar?
Yeah, I think it's a collection this week, and it really depends on what you need. And luckily for everyone, there is definitely a player in each position. There's a plethora, actually. It's just depending who you like more. So no matter what hole you have, I think we have a guy for to try to plug it, if you will.
I'm going to start this out real quick. I'm going to group 4 players together just to get them out of the way, because we've talked about these guys quite a bit. And they're all receivers. They all still would make the list. Chris Godwin, Mike Williams, Geronimo Allison, John Brown. I still think they're all ads. They all showed up in week 1, and they should be rostered, and they're still below our 50% barrier here. And I think that should change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just named 4 of my top 10. So.
Right.
And I think Mike Williams is a no-brainer, right? Everyone's been hyping him up, as they should be. He came out 81 yards, so he looked really good. I mean, that's an easy one. I think Geronimo Allison is the one that it's still only owned in 9.1% of leagues. I still thought that was crazy. I'm glad that the week 1 I was proven right. He looked really good. Aaron Rodgers is back. All 3 wide receivers are very viable, so definitely pick him up. Chris Godwin, He looked good once again, and that one's a weird one because that offense just blew up, so we're not sure how that's going to keep going, but he looked really good as well. And John Brown, I think that's a little scarier. He'd be my 4th, but who knows? Baltimore did really well, and I think John Brown, out of those receivers there, even over Crabtree, I don't know why, I kind of believe in John Brown a little more.
He looks solid. I think he's going to keep getting more opportunities. Again, like that game was just so weird. It's hard to say exactly how it would have gone, if they were actually. I want to see them in an actual game,
Yeah, exactly. Instead of a scrimmage against Buffalo,
right? I want to see them actually in a game. So that's why I want to get those guys out of the way, because we've talked about all of them quite a bit this year. Nothing's really changed. They are pretty much what we thought they were going to be. They're solid players. Other than that, I'll say some of the top. I like Philip Lindsay. I think he's one of my top guys for the week. And I don't know exactly how he's going to be used with Denver going forward, but I think after what he did, when they actually gave him the opportunity week 1, why would they go away from it? He looked, he's just as good, if not better than Freeman. So there's no reason to go away from it. And he's going to have he has some pass catching ability as well. So I like Philip Lindsay.
I do too. And he was actually the 6th name on my list. He was only owned in 1.9% of leagues, and I'm guessing all those leagues were in Denver. But he did. He looked great, and I was forced to kind of go deeper, so I have already picked him up in my Scott Fishbowl league. But I'm surprised that it actually happened in week 1. That's kind of my surprise, because I thought Devontae Booker would be more heavily involved. The fact that it happened so quickly makes me believe they already know what they have with this guy, and they're going to continue using him. And I think he's a very good pass catching back as well. You kind of saw in the preseason, once again it's preseason, but he's able to get open and he has really good hands. So I think they're going to utilize him there. So I don't think that even if Freeman goes off, like everyone kind of assumes he will at some point, that Philip Lindsay will be completely phased out. I do think that he's here to stay.
I mean, the guy ran a 4.39 at the combine. He was extremely productive last year at Colorado with 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns. The year before was 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns. He's been a productive player, so I'm interested in him. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they use him going forward. But all right, who's your top guy then for the week? Other than the ones we've already talked about.
Other than the ones we talked about, I am still on the Aaron Jones bandwagon. 41.5% of leagues. Once again, we're already 1 week down. Jamal Williams did fine, but I don't think that he did anything special. That offense is good, so I still like to go for him.
Yep, he definitely made my list as well, because Jamal Williams did not run away with the job, so that's pretty much it. If Jamal Williams, he had 15 carries, 47 yards, no catches, nothing like that. That's not running away with the job. Aaron Jones is going to get his shot when he comes back, if that's the case, and I think he's going to take it over for him. I really like Aaron Jones quite a bit, so I think if he's out there in your league, I think you got to pick him up. I think you could be getting a guy who's going to be a starter down the road. I really do. I think you don't want to miss out on this chance to get Aaron Jones.
Yeah, and going along with that, we talked about the wide receivers. Now we just broached running back with Phillip Lindsay and Aaron Jones. I think, and once again, add if you want, or maybe you won't agree with me, but I think there's 3 other kind of options you have, and I'll name them in the order I would pick them up. I think Austin Eckler is definitely a viable option. I think the way they use him, he could be used more and more, even though Gordon's going to get a ton of work. Latavius Murray got quite a few carries, and that makes me think that he's actually going to be rostered on all teams, especially on how hard running back is to come by. And then finally, this one's a little bit of a stretch, but I think that you got to go for Frank Gore still. He looked good. It looks like they're splitting carries at the moment. Once again, that the rain delays and everything was hard to really tell, but he didn't look like he was too slowed down. He looks like he's still going to be able to get some production. So if you're in a bind, he would be my last one to pick up.
He actually looked good. So, I mean, for a while there, it was split between him and Drake, and he ended up with 5 less carries, but 13 more yards. He looked good. I don't know how he still does it.
He's the ageless wonder. I mehe really is. I can't fathom how you can take that much abuse and keep trucking.
He does though. It's impressive. And yeah, I think he probably should be on a roster right now. He needs to be rostered. I mean, if he's going to put up that every week, yeah, he needs to be. There's no reason not to. Okay, what about Jordan Wilkins here? Got the start in place of the injured Marlon Mack, and there's no guarantee Marlon Mack gets his job back. So he's 39.3% owned, but okay, he wasn't terribly impressive, I would say. He got the job done for the most part, but any interest in him, or do you think this is just kind of 14 carries, 40 yards? That's probably his ceiling. There's no real use to use him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in love with any running back in Indianapolis. I definitely think that someone is going to be, on the roster. Wilkins is going to be the guy right now, but the way he looked, I have to think that when Matt comes back, he's going to be the guy. But Wilkins, I don't know. He's that in between. I need one more week because he was just kind of average. And for me, I would rather have the guys we talked about before than him, even though he's a young guy and maybe he has some room to grow.
And maybe even with Hines, he's getting the catches, so he becomes more valuable because of that. Especially PPR, Hines had 7 catches, so he had 52 yards, but he had 7 receptions. Makes him, I mean, that's 12.2 points in PPR for Hines. Maybe that's the one he should be adding.
Yeah, very true.
That's a solid game for him. The Leonard Fournette injury, we don't really know what's going to happen with that yet, but if that's the case, TJ Yeldon, any interest in him, or is he just, we've seen him so many times, he hasn't done it. Stay away.
I'm not overly impressed, but I mean, if you have Fournette and you have to pick someone up, if he takes those carries, you're going to have to almost get him as a handcuff, but I'm not going to be rushing off to try to steal him. And also, I don't think Fournette's injury is anything major. They've already kind of said they're optimistic about it. So I'm not running off to get him quite yet.
Yeah, I think I would just not even worry about it at all. I don't need TJ Yeldon in my lineup yet. I don't think in week 2. Later on in the year, maybe when you're desperate, if he was a guy, but not yet.
Do you want to talk about the few wide receivers that I'm still on the fence about, or do you want to hit up tight end?
Yeah, let's talk about some of these receivers here. There's a couple guys out there I got on my list here.
All right, there's quite a few guys that I'm just not sold on yet, but I don't know what to do with myself. I'm not sure if I believe in them or if they're going to be kind of boom or bust candidates, how to use them. But the guys that made my list, especially the 2 that I'm going to be thinking about the most, is Phillip Dorsett from New England and then Deshaun Jackson from Washington. Obviously, Deshaun Jackson, we kind of know what he does. He's a big play guy. He killed it this week. What are you doing about him, first of all?
Man, he's still such a tough one for me because it's so boom or bust. And I don't see many scenarios where I put it. I mean, I guess the thing is, okay, I can picture it. One of my teams, I'm a little bit I'm a little weak at wide receiver. We start 3 receivers. I'm a little bit weak. I could possibly think of starting him as my 3rd receiver. So yeah, it depends on what your team's like and if you need that upside play. But Deshaun Jackson, yeah, he needs to be rostered. And if I don't like doing it, but yeah, he could. This is what he does, right? This is what he does. He still has it, obviously. He still can do this big weeks thing. He's going to have some where he gets you absolutely nothing, but I think he's still worth a risk. As much as I don't want to say that.
I know, and I know that it's going to be on the top of everyone's list because, I mean, this is when Tampa Bay went off on the Saints. Jackson caught 5 balls for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. Massive numbers, 26 points. He's going to be at the top of all of these lists about who scored the most and who's still on waivers. So I know that is going to be where everyone goes first. So you have no problem on it, but would you have an issue with them jumping down, getting like, Godwin, Williams, Allison? You would still recommend all of those guys before Jackson?
Yeah, those 3 for sure. I still would. I can see getting Jackson over John Brown. Yeah, I guess it depends on how needy you are for a guy like that. And if you don't really have much talent at wide receiver, maybe, yeah, you do need Deshaun Jackson. And as long as Fitzpatrick's there, maybe he's going to have a connection with Jackson, and this is what's going to happen. So they'll just be throwing the ball around because they're not overly impressed with their run game right now.
Right. Speaking of, we just have to bring it up quick. How alarming is it that Ronald Jones was a healthy scratch?
I don't know if it's just a wake-up call for the guy yet. I still don't know if it's just a wake-up call. I've thought that for a while, but just not play a guy, not dress a guy. And maybe there's something going on there. He's just not quite getting it, it feels like. And I mean, he's only a 2nd-round pick? There's no guarantee he's ever going to be anything.
No guarantee, but a 2nd-round pick is a lot of draft capital to throw at a guy that you're not even going to dress.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. There's definitely some kind of disconnect there between him and coaching staff. That's for sure. No, I don't know what it is, but it's not great. Because, I mean, Payton Barbers okay, but Payton Barbers not a special running back at all. He's not somebody that a 2nd-round rookie shouldn't be able to overtake.
No, and he actually had somewhat of a solid game, right? 19 rushes for 69 yards. He kind of got the job done, yeah. So, but the other one that I really want to ask you about, New England, Dorsett. I know that New England is sporadic, to say the least, but he did have 7 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. Where does he fall on your list of waivers?
He would be wide receiver wise behind Williams, Allison, Godwin, John Brown, but I would have Dorsett probably for myself ahead of Jackson, just because of I don't know, because I don't love Deshaun Jackson ever, but Dorsett, he interests me because of the fact he was a 1st-round talent. He's maybe finally in a spot where he can show that, and I would just like to take the chance and put him on my bench right now just in case he has figured it out, kind of a thing. Maybe he hasn't. I'm not saying he has. I'm not going to put him in my lineup next week, but I might want to throw him on my bench and just kind of see if this is something.
Perfect. So do you have any other wide receivers that you're eyeing on this waiver list?
Only if I'm desperate, I guess. I threw some desperation guys.
So who are your desperation, Hail Mary kind of players?
I mean, okay, Brandon Marshall didn't look bad.
I was wondering if his name was going to be brought up.
He didn't look bad. And then Doug Baldwin has the injury now. So, I mean,
someone's got to catch the ball.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not. I'm not going to put Brandon Marshall on my team, but he had 1 touchdown. He should have had a 2nd. So I don't want to put. I'd put Deshaun Jackson over Brandon Marshall. So at least that much. Some other guys that still could maybe do something. I mean, Willie Snead. Again, the Baltimore thing. We don't know what that team is, but Willie Snead at least he's out there playing. Depends on how big your roster is. D.D. Westbrook led the Jaguars in receiving there. So it's another maybe interesting play. I always like D.D. That's pretty much it. I don't really have many others there. Ted Ginn played really well, but that was just a shootout of a game.
Yeah, but he did play well. And, that whole Saints offense looked really in sync. So, I think there's a lot of points to go around. But back to the D.D. Westbrook, I think that is an interesting one. I think Fournette will be back, obviously. I don't think his injury is anything major. But if they do have to throw the ball a little more, we keep trying to figure out who is going to be the guy that's going to be their primary receiver. And not that he stood out completely. I think him and Cole both are kind of, kind of battling it out at the moment. But he did have the most catches, 5 receptions, 51 yards. So, I like that one.
Yeah, and I'm a D.D. Westbrook fan. I think he has the talent to do it. So I'm still hoping it's going to happen. And I don't know if I love that any part of that passing offense though. They're just not terribly interesting to me. I mean, shoot, I'd probably add Des Bryant over them yet.
Still hold out hope. I like it.
Maybe he has to get on a roster at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's only a matter of time. I mean, we already saw injuries kind of, rear their head a little bit, kind of freaking people out. But as soon as a wide receiver goes down, that Dez is going to be the first call. So I can only imagine he will end up on a team at some point. But, it'll all be a guessing game as to when.
And then maybe if you're in PPR, Ryan Grant had 8 catches, only 59 yards out of it, but maybe a PPR play, that's one of those guys to watch here for the next couple weeks and see if he still keeps putting up that, 7-8 catches. If he gets that kind of number, he becomes an interesting ad. After 1 week, no, not really sure what it is, but he is pretty much the number 2 there. So it's a guy to watch. Just kind of keep on your radar. Probably not a pickup for me yet. What about tight ends? Let's say you're a Delaney Walker owner. You've lost Delaney Walker. Who are you going and picking up right now?
Yeah, or Olsen. I mean,
true.
We don't know what that is yet, and I have Olsen, so I'm definitely looking around to see who's out there. And the number 1 tight end in my mind that you can get out there is George Kittle. He got hurt in preseason a little bit, so his stock dropped. So he's only owned in 37.1% of leagues, but they were hyping him up quite a bit before that. Obviously, him and Garoppolo have a really good chemistry going. And he looked good. He had pretty good numbers, and I think he'll be a solid play from here on out. So I would feel very comfortable putting George Kittle in there.
Yeah, me too. He by far would be my top ad if he's up. I mean, he's probably on a lot of people's waiver wires because he wouldn't have been if it wasn't for the preseason injury. But no one knew how that was going to play out, and he didn't get drafted as often as he should have. And he should be on your roster. He should be on a team. So if you need a tight end, I think you go get George Kittle for sure, because after that, I don't like the options. Really don't.
No. The only other person that I still like, and he was just okay today, but he only had 2 catches for 54 yards. But they had that shootout, is O.J. Howard. I still think that there's room for him to grow. And, in a world where it wasn't so wide open and everything was working and throwing it down the field to the wide receivers, I think he would have a few more looks. So, maybe he's a weak kind of like wait and see a little bit, but I really like his upside still, especially when you're looking at these other names where, you're going to be talking about Antonio Gates or Jared Cook or something. I think O.J. Howard is definitely head and shoulders above those guys.
Yeah, that would probably be my second option as well after Kittle. It'd be Howard. He's good for the potential. But would you consider Eric Ebron?
How dare you?
I'm the one who brought it up somehow.
I know, I he and haw over this one. Yeah, I would actually. He would be on my short list. Once again, though, just because I have such a memory of him dropping balls and being unproductive from time to time. 4 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown. That's good production from a tight end. I can't deny it. He has luck. That's good. He's a very good athlete, but I think he's going to be crazy inconsistent. So I'd definitely take Kittle over him. And I still would take Howard, but he would probably end up being number 3 right now, just because I want to kind of see how it works out. And if he breaks out this year, then, it is what it is, and you gotta give him his props.
Yeah. I mean, I've always known he has talent, but that's part of the reason I have such a dislike for him is because he never put it together with the Lions. Just not a fan. All right, so there's not many other tight ends. So I'm going to look at some, if you're in the QB streaming business, who could you possibly stream next week? And do I say Tyrod Taylor's my number 1 option next week going against the Saints after what Fitzpatrick did to the Saints?
I would say absolutely.
Right?
I mean, look what he did. I mean, with Pittsburgh, this is the great thing and the worst thing about Tyrod Taylor. He didn't always make it look pretty, but the fact that he can scramble always makes him a good option. And even only throwing 1 touchdown and 197 yards, he still got 25 points in standard. So he's got to be on your list, especially going to what looked like Swiss cheese this week.
He was 15 of 40.
Not great, but once again, I don't know. I mean, they got enough done. I think it's only going to get better because Gordon, they're kind of working him back into it, and that catch in the end zone, you saw how good he's going to be. So I only think that's going to get easier for Tyrod.
I do. I think he should be the top probably streaming option. Case Keenum against Oakland is another solid one. Keenum looked pretty decent. He did throw 3 picks though. That was disappointing, but he had 3 touchdowns, 329 yards. So fantasy wise, he was very solid for you. So I think Keenum is probably a solid start. And what about, Nick Foles looked pretty bad week 1, but going against Tampa, who does not have a good defense, would you consider Nick Foles at all, or was he just too bad that you just can't even?
To our point, I would definitely take Tyrod and Case Keenum over it. After that, when you're looking at these, he would definitely be in the conversation.
But would you go Fitzpatrick? I don't trust Fitzpatrick. I know he looked great, but
that's the issue. I guess, do you go for, you don't trust either of them right now. Do you go for the guy, the hot hand, or the guy that has possibly the No, I think I would go Fitzpatrick. I do. I think Foles was so bad in the first game that I have to wait and see. And I really don't think that they're back to full strength. I think they have to get Elshon back in order to help him out. And I think Fitzpatrick just, he played his balls off, man. He just did so well that I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him the shot over Foles.
Maybe we're overlooking Joe Flacco. The Ravens just did. Maybe they're for real going against Cincinnati.
Pass. But I get your point, but I wouldn't be able to do it. Flacco is just, I've seen him in the past. He's just way too inconsistent. That Bills team was so bad. If you do that against Cincinnati, then I'm all for it, but I highly doubt that's what is going to happen.
Yeah, I could never trust it. Chances are Tyrod, maybe you were streaming Tyrod already and you could just get him again. And that's probably the play I think that's where you go with it. And then I'll say, yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully you don't have to stream too much yet. Hopefully you got some decent players. So I think that's going to do it for my waivers, unless there's any other name out there you're thinking. Kenneth Dixon taking over for Alex Collins?
Oh my God, I hope not. But yeah, that'll be interesting. I think there's a few teams that we have to see week 2 because we learned little to nothing about them in week 1. And, Baltimore is just one of them.
Yep. All right. I think that'll do it. And we will talk to you guys on Wednesday's show. We'll have our rankings out for the week, so we'll talk to you guys then.